Hello, my fellow health seekers. It's Jennifer, your nutrition therapist with Digestive Detectives. And so yesterday, while I was at the farmer's market enjoying the beautiful environment, I thought, it's kind of slow here. I'm going to read my latest issue of Consumer Reports. And I knew I was going to love it because, it's a cow. It says anti-inflammatories, antidepressants, antifungals, and antibiotics. What I know is in meat because I read up on these things and I care what goes in my body, as well as you should too. So I just highlighted some things throughout this article that I thought you should know. It's disturbing that these things are even found in our meat. But, and I'm not going to pronounce all of these right, I guarantee you, so bear with me. Ketamine, a hallucinogenic party drug and experimental antidepressant. Phenylbutazone, an anti-inflammatory deemed too risky for human use. Chloramphenicol, a powerful antibiotic linked to potentially deadly anemia. So these appear to be in the U.S. meat supply, according to Consumer Research reports. The data come from the Department of Agriculture's Food and Safety Inspection Service, as well as the FSIS, the FSIS, says that results should be discounted because they came from unconfirmed screening tests, so they redid the test later on to more accurately reflect what would be best for the public to know. Oh, so let's see. These results are credible enough that you would expect the government to take the warning signs seriously, says James E. Rogers, PhD, who was a microbiologist at the FSIS for 13 years. So we've got some retired insider input coming in. Now, I have nothing against the government inspection of meat. I'm glad it's done. What I have problem with is consumers being allowed to consume this meat at all when testing has been done showing that there's toxins in your meat. Anyhow, you can tell I'm a bit passionate about this, can't you? But the data raise questions about more than just one company or class of drugs. Hundreds of samples of poultry, beef, and pork appear to show residue of drugs that the government says should never be used in food animals. And he said, in many cases, the results were below a level that the agency considers worrisome. This is regarding where did it go? Don't want to misquote anyone. Emilio Esteban was the one that said that one. Sorry. So it shouldn't be worrisome. Well, here's the thing. These test results seem to me as if they're based on someone who ate meat one time in their entire life. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm a vegetarian, but I've eaten meat more than once in my entire life because I didn't become a vegetarian until 2009. So if some people out there eat meat 3 times a day. If a person eats meat every single day, non-organic meat, not to say that organic meat is any better because there are things that go on behind closed doors in the organic world, I'm sorry to say, it's probably true. But anyhow, toxins accumulate in our fat, okay? So if you eat meat even once a day, every single day, and it's got toxins in it, that's going to accumulate in you. You are what you eats. If you eat a sick animal, you will be sick. If your beef has been fed antibiotics and grains, then that's going to affect your gut health. Antibiotics kill off your gut bacteria. Those grains are high in omega-3 inflammatory foods, so you're going to be high in omega-3s. Anyhow, better keep on track here. So the equipment has gotten so sensitive that it is possible to detect things that you wouldn't be able to 20 years ago. I get that. So that's a good thing. But that doesn't mean that it's acceptable to keep it at the levels that we were using 20 years ago as far as what's acceptable in our food. Let's see. This was definitely disturbing here. Some experts, however, worry that relying on higher cutoffs of the FSIS may overlook possible health threats. Some research, including a 2015 review in the Journal of Veterinary Science and Toxicology, suggests that long-term exposure to low level of drug residue in meat could increase the risk of cancer, fetal harm, antibiotic resistance, and more. And that's just what I said, folks. You can't expect to eat that every day and not have some kind of effect. Inconsistent regulation is another issue here. They're talking about shrimp. Shrimp from Malaysia was blocked because it contained chloramphenicol at levels of 0.3 parts per billion. By contrast, the FSIS regulatory cutoff for chloramphenicol, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, forgive me, in meat in our country is 3 parts per billion. So 0.3 parts per billion versus 3 parts per billion. That's 10 times as high. That's not a good thing. So regulators were worried that some consumers could be exposed to phenylbutazone. This is a study done, or not, excuse me, not a study, rather a report done in Europe about some possibly contaminated horse meat. Yes, horse meat. I'm not saying they eat horse meat in Europe, but something made the news about this. So, but the point is phenylbutazone in meat. Now, once they found that the meat was contaminated and unfit for human consumption, and it was in 1 to 11 parts per billion in Europe, so they recalled that. They said, heck no, this is not good for the people. But in the FSIS here in America sets its cutoff for the same drug at 50 parts per billion. Just facts. A director of A Greener World says, I'm floored by these results. Andrew Gunther says, these are potentially very dangerous drugs appearing in more samples and at higher levels than I would have expected. So let's take a quick look at the main drugs that Consumer Reports was looking at here. Okay, so here's a nice little chart, if I can get it where you can see it. I'm brand new to a webcam, so forgive me. But beef, we see beef has the highest levels here of all of them. Chicken, pork, well, pigs eat everything, so why is it not surprising that it's way up there? There we go. And turkey, yeah. So chicken and turkey are tolerable if you're going to have something. But then again, they've got omega-3s because they're grain-fed. So, back to the drugs. Phenylbutazone. An anti-inflammatory and pain-killing drug no longer used in humans because it can cause aplastic anemia and other blood disorders and could be carcinogenic in humans and pork. 24 of 1,448 samples were above the Consumer Reports threshold. Ketamine, an anesthetic also used experimentally as an antidepressant that is restricted by the government because it is sometimes used as an illegal hallucinogenic party drug. Anybody want ketamine in their food today? Nitroimidazoles, antifungal medications used with great caution because they are likely carcinogens. Now, I don't know if you know what carcinogen means. That means it is likely to cause cancer. So, bad to be in your meat. Okay, next page. I'm really trying to summarize this, folks, but it just was such a disturbing report that I had to highlight a lot. So, how do banned drugs get into meat anyway? Good question. So, background exposure. Drugs prescribed so widely that, well, we pee out what drugs we take, so that can get into runoff water, and everything doesn't always get filtered out of our water. So, yeah, you do kind of have some pee in your tap water, basically. Okay, improper use. Drug residues can also be found in meat if an animal was given a wrong dose, or it might be added to their feed. Counterfeit drugs. This was terrible to hear. Counterfeit veterinary medicine. The animals are given cheap medicine, I guess. Contaminated feed. A farmer who raised chickens for many years says that feed often contains parts of other animals, such as cattle, and animals turned into feed could be more likely to have been sick, treated with drugs prior to slaughter. So we're eating animals who are eating dead, sick animals. So how sick is that? Okay, intentional misuse. Once again, mentioned this before. Misuse of veterinary drugs to speed up growth, increase lean protein, and treat sick animals. Some sick animals are so sick that they can't even stand up, but they give them enough drugs to help them stand up prior to slaughter, and they get by with that, and that's not okay with me. Let's see. For example, cattle that can't stand, this is what I was just saying, cattle that can't stand on their own are not allowed to be used for meat. Lame cattle are sometimes given phenylbutazone, that one we talked about before, that's allowed up to 50 parts per billion, but Europe only allows 11 parts per billion before they say too sick. Painkiller shortly used before slaughter so they can get the animal through the slaughterhouse gates without anybody looking closer. And I'm not bashing the meat industry. I'm just simply stating facts. And forgive me if I misquote anything. I'm just on a rant here. Charles Binbrook from Johns Hopkins suspect that the FSIS might set thresholds higher in part because it doesn't have the resources to deal with extra violations. Oh, no doubt. I mean, it costs money to do these tests, and then if you find that, what are you going to do? Just throw all away that meat because it was one more part per billion than allowed? I get that. People in starving countries would love to have that meat. And Basu and Baines, although, let me say this real quick, people in starving countries who can only eat grains might actually be a little healthier than us in the long run, if they have enough grains to eat, that is. And Basu and Baines worry that the FSIS tests often focus on the wrong parts of animals. That's right, because toxins collect in our liver, collect in our fatty tissues. So I guarantee you, if you take a cow's liver and have it tested versus its muscle, there's going to be drugs in its liver if it's had if it's had drugs. But rarely leads to changes in how meat producers operate after these tests. Bayou says, I've been to farms where they are proud to get letters from the FDA, he says. They cover the holes in the barns with the letters and just keep on doing it. Considering organic farms, now if you have to eat meat, I would suggest organic, but it also says that they're not completely clean of doing this very stuff themselves. However, organic farms are subject to additional monitoring from the government and independent organizations, and federal law generally requires them to raise their animals without drugs. So, folks, that's why I say go to a plant-based diet, become a vegetarian. I think eating eggs are alright. I'm sorry, vegans out there. I was once a vegan. I'm sorry. But anyhow, you've got to take care of your body. Stick to an 80-20 rule. 80% plant-based, 20% animal. And you will improve your health so much. Focus on anti-inflammatory foods. So folks, I'm sorry if this was a little bit longer rant. I didn't mean for it to go this long, but I care about you. I'm your nutritionist, and I want only the best for you. So, heck, vegetables are a lot cheaper than meat. Can't go wrong. I'm out.